back to another edition of the Friday Show presented by Walmac Farms Core Beliefs. I'm Ray Pollock, joined by Joe Nevels, and our guest this week, Ben Colebrook, who had a big weekend in New York and Kentucky. Before we talk about those horses and races, Joe, what's going on with Core Beliefs?
Core Beliefs standing at Walmac Farm in Lexington, Kentucky. Look, if you're looking to breed to quality road, Core Beliefs is a power model. Power in the shoulder, power in the hip. He's even got power in the feet. This is a good, solid horse. A lot of the quality roads can be kind of lanky, kind of stretchy. If you're looking for something that's solid, good power, good muscle, take a look at Core Beliefs. He's worth going out and inspecting.
All right, thanks, Joe. Thanks to Walmac Farm. Ben, you were a little bit off the radar for a while, but all of a sudden this past weekend, you're on the Triple Crown Trail with not one, but with two colts. You had Raise Cain, who came from off the pace on a sloppy track to win the Gotham and get 50 points for the Kentucky Derby, which pretty much puts him in. And this, by the way, 26-1, I think, maybe something like that for the winning odds. And then the John Battaglia at Turfway Park finished a good second with Scoobie Quando, and that's a name that I just love. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you, Ray.
So both horses are owned by the Warrens, husband and wife team, who's, I guess, the son is the son of William Warren, who's a pretty significant horse owner.
Yes, yeah, City Light and St. Liam, owned some very good horses over the years.
So before we talk about the two horses, you were at Aqueduct for Raise Cain's race and watched it from an Uber, and then went to the airport and saddled Scooby Quando for the Battaglia. Is that right? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, looking at it, I thought there was, we knew we were going to enter both horses. I started looking at flights on the way up there, and when the overnights came out, and I saw that we were running so late at Turfway, I thought there'd be a chance that I could make it back in time for Scoobie's race. And once I had legged Jose Lezcano up on Raise Cain, there's really nothing more I was going to be able to do. So I figured, why not just get to the airport and get out of town. And there were the flights the following day. There was going to be, I was going to have a connection, and this was my last chance to get a direct flight, until Sunday afternoon. So I figured I might as well just, if it was going to work out, that I would do it. And I guess I had plenty of time, because actually Joe Talamo, who rode the race, was still made the flight as well. So,
so you watched the start of the race?
Yeah, because when you go to JFK, you go right by the chute. So I kind of just had the Uber stop, and I watched him break, and I saw the loose horse. And when I saw the loose horse, I kind of liked my chances, because I knew my horse is so level-headed. And, I think because he was further back, Jose was one of the first ones to notice that there was the loose horse. I think a lot of horses on the front might not have seen it. So, who knows? It might have worked out as an advantage to us. And, it was a good experience for him going forward to be he'd not been in a big field like that on the dirt yet. It's a great experience, because he was in between horses, and he kind of had to check off heels there around the turn, and got out, and then, obviously finished the race off great. So, we were so pleased.
How long is that flight between JFK and Cincinnati?
It's about, I guess it's 2.5 hours, something like that, 2 hours and 15 minutes. And then, you never know if you're actually going to leave JFK on time. Right. That's the thing. Your flight can be on time, but, you get out, like, usually sometimes, I've sat on the taxiway forever there before. So no, but everything worked out great. And, I guess if training doesn't work out, I could always become a travel agent.
So you watched the race on your phone then, I guess? Or
yeah, after I couldn't see him going into the turn, I had my phone on, and I just clicked it over and got back in the Uber and went on to the airport, and, saw we won. And then David Grenning was calling shortly thereafter, because I had seen him before, and I didn't tell anybody except Lezcano and my groom what I was going to do, So David had seen me earlier on in the day, and I think he was kind of like, where the heck did he go? And then I started getting texts from my parents and KK Ball, one of my owners who I'm very close with. They thought, because the horse came out late because there wasn't enough pony people. So not late, but Miguel, who's the outrider in New York, he does my pony work up there, and all his guys were taken. So he had arranged it with that that I would come out after the 15, and then he would take me to the post. So everybody saw the horse came out late, and I wasn't in the win circle, and nobody knew what was happening. So they thought I got kicked, saddle on the horse or something, but I was obviously fine. It was just planned that way.
A field of 14. No
Yeah.
wonder there were enough ponies.
Yeah, exactly. That doesn't happen in New York very often. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't think there was enough gate guys either.
So what were you doing in transit after the race was over, and then on the plane? Like, how are you preparing for the next race? Or are you just kind of reading your favorite book? What are you doing?
Just kind of chilling, resting. Yeah, I'm not really had a drink, and just kind of was enjoying winning a race. And I thought I had a big chance in the Battaglia, so I was kind of just you're thinking about the race, but I kind of knew when I won in New York that fairy tale endings in this game don't happen very often, so I figured we probably wouldn't get it done there. But he ran a great race. He just had nowhere to go and got kind of shuffled all the way back at the top of the stretch and came with the big run. So and he's still he's not very experienced yet. That was only his third race, so I think he'll get a lot out of it. And I kind of was, before the race, was a little worried that if we were to run well in the Battaglia and have a hard race, do you really want to come back in 3 weeks in the Jeff Ruby? But he didn't have a hard race, so I think that it does give him, sometimes things are meant to happen. So maybe he was just, that was supposed to happen, and maybe he'll show up on Ruby Day and run a big race.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Joe.
So obviously we just mentioned Scoobie Quando going to the Ruby. What's the next plan for Raise Cain?
Well, the bluegrass and the wood are obviously on the same day. I mean, if we weren't based at Keeneland, I probably would, definitely be just, for sure in the wood. But being at Keeneland and, like Ray said, we probably will get in the Derby with the points that we have. If one race is significantly easier than the other, we'll definitely, like, if I think I can win the wood with him and it's an easier race, we definitely go to the wood. But if the races were similar, I'd probably say we just stay home, and lead him over from his stall. It's just hard to pass that up.
I see you're not afraid to travel with Raise Cain. He's got starts at Keeneland, Churchill, Fairgrounds, Turfway, Aqueduct, obviously. Why was Aqueduct kind of the play for this particular race?
Well, we were, when you got a 3-year-old like these horses, you nominate everywhere. And, I'd kind of thought about maybe just running him in a 1X at Oaklawn, because obviously the poly didn't suit him. So we were looking to get back on the dirt. And when we looked at the noms for the wood, or for the Gotham, there was so much speed, and I think that's what he was missing in his races, is some pace to close into. I don't necessarily know that it's one turn over 2 turns, but I think he does need some pace to run into. And obviously, when we looked at the Gotham, it was just a lot of speed in there, a lot of horses stretching out from sprints. He was one of the horses that had the most 2-turn experience, so I knew he'd be running at the end. I mean, he surprised me with how, just with what ease he won the race. But, I knew he had kind of acted like he's got a race like that in him. He's like, what you're saying about the shipping, he's so laid back that, it's so easy to take him on the road and do everything, because when you go to Aqueduct, it's tough because you actually ship to Belmont and then you ship over to Aqueduct on race day. So, for a young horse and then a 14-horse field, that is a lot to ask. And he just passed it with flying colors.
With Raise Cain, now that it does appear that you've got the points, would that change anything in terms of how you train him, versus going up to a race where you absolutely have to get the points, or does it
I think maybe, yeah. I think it would, maybe if you were really, like, say he ran a really good second in the Gotham and you needed to be kind of 1, 2, 3 in one of the next ones, would you be squeezing him a little bit in the morning? I mean, that's not really my style to squeeze him in the mornings, but it might enter your mind. Now I just think he's dead fit. I'm just trying to maintain it between now and our next prep, and then, get him through that one. And then, if we look like we want to go to the Derby after that, then keep him, in good health. But, he makes your job. He's the type of horse that makes my job easy, because he's got talent, and the mental part of it, for these 3-year-olds, it's a big attribute, because, the mental part of it comes into question more than any other race. The Derby is probably the race that, horses' mental toughness probably gets tested more than any other race for that, probably in America.
So moving the focus over on to Scoobie Quando. First off, do you have any insight on that name? That is a unique name.
Andrew got interviewed by the TDN when he broke his maiden in the stake, and he said that it was his father liked to sing in the shower, and it was one of like the sing-songy lines that he sang in the shower, so it reminded him of his dad. So that's kind of, and that's paraphrasing, but that was the story that I got. But I thought it was something to do with the cartoon, but I don't think it is.
Clearly a horse that you believed in early on. I mean, started him out in a stakes race.
Yeah.
That's and kind of an unorthodox route for anyone, especially on the Turfway preview is a prep race for the Jeff Ruby. Essentially, it's one of the early ones. So, what made you think like, okay, this is the spot where we're going to start this horse?
Well, the bunch of things. I mean, the maidens have been so tough at Turfway. And he didn't have a great date because he didn't have a name for he didn't have a 0 date. So, it was not, we didn't know exactly when we'd be able to get him in a maiden if we were, maybe we get excluded. The timing was right. I wanted to run him around one turn for his first start because he did have enough speed. And I thought that, if he could get behind horses and just kind of make one run, he'd learn a lot more than going in a 2-turn race and being close and maybe getting tired and fading. So we wanted a 1-turn race. The race didn't come up that tough. And, we just kind of said, why not? I mean, if he doesn't win, who cares? He come back in a maiden race. But, he won the race and, it validated everything we thought about the horse, because I thought he was super talented. I didn't know if he was synthetic or grass or dirt. He worked on the dirt and the synthetic, obviously. Pedigree on the dam side's, real turfy. So, and he still may, we still have all those options going forward. But no, I mean, it was just one of those races that it was there and it wasn't, as tough as a stake in Kentucky League normally is. We took a shot and it worked out.
Quality at his core.
And Core Beliefs will come on and win it nicely.
By leading sire, Quality Road.
And here is Core Beliefs to take the lead. Core Beliefs on the outside. Here it is, Core Beliefs.
All the best attributes of his sire. A multiple graded stakes winner who's proven at the classic distance with tactical speed and a must-see physical.
It's Core Beliefs who digs his heels in to win the New Orleans Handicap.
Core Beliefs, standing at Walmac.
Normally, staying in Kentucky for the winter means a lot of sort of spotty weather and missed training and that sort of thing. How is this winter gone? I know that just before Christmas, it was below 0, which was horrible. But then starting in January, it's been one of the warmest Kentucky winters on record, I think.
Yeah, we haven't missed a day since Christmas. And we were going to miss, a day for Christmas anyway. So I think we missed, maybe we would miss like Christmas Eve and the day after Christmas, because it was so cold. You wouldn't have trained the horses anyway. And there was snow and ice on the horse path. So, but, the good thing about Keeneland is, we have a synthetic training track. So it's usually, the track's always good. It's just, can you get to the track with the horse path? And is it even worth taking horses out there if the weather's that bad? So, it's been a, very easy winter to train to get through. And, I think sometimes, if you miss a day here or there, I mean, it's not the end of the world. I think, sometimes it helps some horses, just freshen them up a little bit, but we've been lucky this year. It hasn't been an issue at all, but I've always had at least a string here in the winter. So I'm used to the Kentucky winters, so it's not been an issue at all this year.
Keeping along those lines, prepping in Kentucky, running in the Kentucky-based preps, keeping Scoobie Quando at, running at Turfway. Obviously, he's training at Keeneland and such, but he's going through the Turfway prep route. Hasn't had a start on dirt yet. What makes you confident, if you are confident, that he can make that move over to dirt eventually if he needs to for the Triple Crown races?
He was training. I had him at both Keeneland and Churchill on the dirt before he ever started, and he was breezing. He worked 46 out of the gate at Keeneland on the dirt. So, I mean, I think to me, I don't know if it's just the configuration of the synthetic track because it's a 5/8 track and he's, or if it's actually that he's better on the dirt. But his works to me on the dirt have I've liked better than what I've seen from him on the poly. We haven't worked him. He got most of his heavy works in before we moved down to the synthetic track, so we've just been trying to maintain him down there. But he's an Uncle Mo, so you got to try him on the dirt at some point. Daveron was obviously, she was a good turf filly that I was around. Actually, Christoph had her before Grand Motion, did all the good with her, so I was around her some. And I think it wouldn't surprise me if by the end of his career he's known as a turf horse. But at this stage, I see nothing wrong with trying him on the dirt and see where we go on the dirt. And if the backup plan's the grass, that's more than fine.
How do you train these horses in terms of their breezes? Do you breeze them in company or alone, or?
I usually breeze them in company before they run, and then after they've run, unless I'm looking to do something, really like I want a serious work. Once I run them, I usually work them on their own. I don't put them back in company, like unless maybe like if we were to get to the Derby, I would work Raise Cain in company, maybe like 2 works out or something like that. But both these horses are very relaxed in their work, so there's no problem working them in company. But usually I always work them in company before their first race. Every works in company, and then after that, a lot of times I feel like once they've had a race in them, I just need to maintain their fitness. I'm not trying to get them that much more geared up to let the races kind of get them fit.
And you work them in company before they race to get a gauge on them, or to get them more competitive?
Yeah, both to have a gauge. Usually what I'll do when I get all the babies in, you'll start working them, trying to pair them up on what you think is a good match. And then after you've started to kind of get your teams together, you'll kind of switch them. If one's better than the other, say you work 2 together and one outworks one, then you'll switch him up and work him with one that maybe outworked the other horse that you worked the time before, until you get the 2 top colts or the 2 top fillies, kind of tier them up like that. But it does give you a gauge, and you really don't really have the problem is you don't really have a gauge until you run the first one, and then you kind of know if you run the best one first and he runs up the track, then you're kind of like, man, do I just got a bad bunch? But this year's 3-year-olds, I was quietly confident going in that both my stable and Andrew had better horses than they'd had before, or at least
if you could only pick one of these 2, which one would you pick?
I've always thought Scoobie Quando, but after the race at Aqueduct, it would be hard to not take Raise Cain. But I still think brilliant. I think that the brilliance factor could be there more for Scoobie, because some of the stuff I've seen him do in the mornings have been pretty spectacular. But it's hard to knock a horse like Raise Cain. He's kind of more of that workman, like he just shows up every time, and you don't have to worry about him. He's not a horse that catches the eye probably as much. Neither horse is very big, and sometimes I think that's that can be you don't want them super small, but if they're good movers and they're medium-sized horses, I think sometimes it's a lot easier to keep them sound.
In terms of, you went from having, basically no Kentucky Derby contenders to 2 potential Kentucky Derby contenders over the course of a weekend.
Right.
How has life changed for you? How has your schedule changed a little bit, aside from being on shows like this?
Nothing's changed. Really, it's, I've been around long enough to know that you can't get too high when you're doing good or too low when you're doing bad, or you'll just, you're gonna burn out. So, I just kind of keep it day to day, and you got to enjoy it when you're doing well, but at the same time, don't get too far ahead of yourself, because you don't know what lies around the next turn.
Well, Ben, thanks for joining us this week. The next time these 2 horses run, you'll be able to saddle and watch them both and unsaddle them, because Jeff Ruby's a different day than the Wood or the Bluegrass. So, right. Exactly. So that's good news.
Yeah, that is good news.
Listen, we want to wish you the best with both horses, the rest of your stable. I'm sure you've got some 2-year-olds that you're pretty excited about as well, and we'll look for those down the road too.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us on this week's Friday show. Thanks to Walmac Farm for their sponsorship with Core Beliefs, and we'll see you next week.
Support award-winning independent horse industry journalism and become a Pollock Report Insider on Patreon. For as little as $5 a month, insiders get access to exclusive Q&As with Pollock Report staff, insight behind our editorial process, exclusive opinions and on-site analysis, Pollock Report merch, and more. This is not a paywall. The website you know and love will always be the same. But if you want more, and you want to make our coverage even better, visit patreon.com/Pollock Report and become a Pollock Report Insider today.